Hi, I'm Paul Roberts, and this is Conscious Counseling 101. This is a generic video that I'm going to put together for someone that has requested for me to talk with them. I do this a lot. Most of the times I don't even have a name. This just shoots out into the void. Never hear from a lot of them again. Never even hear a thank you, even for the 15 minutes of my time, but that's not important. I do this because I know I can, and I do this because I know I should, but only to those who ask. And you've asked. This is what's written. I'm a divorced 50-year-old female. I'm lonely. I'm trying to start a business also, but that's been difficult. What can I do? I want a man in my life. So I said, that's not really much. I'll talk to you because I said I would, but tell me a little bit more because I have to have something to go on if I'm going to be helpful at all, right? So I said, please tell me a little bit more if you wish. Otherwise, I'll do it regardless. And she did write a little bit more. I currently have enough to eat. I have a place to stay. I have clothes to wear. I was raised by a Christian family. I still have my favorite Bible quotes. I have 2 kids, both living with dad while I'm alone due to an illness. I am sad that my ex chose to take the kids and live away instead of living with me while I'm sick. I have mental illness. Okay. What is most important in this world? Okay? Health, survival, mental help for yourself is so crucial. And that's why I call this Conscious Counseling 101, because I bare my soul in some of my other videos and tell you what I'm struggling with so that you'll know that even a person that's healthy and does help themselves introspectively on a regular basis can help you, because I show what I go through to help myself. So what you go through should really look something like what I'm going through. Of course, your circumstances are different. Everybody's are. But what I'm going through is I'm trying to figure out what's going on, what's motivating me, what am I seeing, what am I reacting to, how do I live, why, and what should I do differently today and in the long run than I have been doing. Here's what I say to you. You've got to be healthy, but in order to maintain being healthy, you've got to be, I don't want to say happy, but you've got to be whole. Happiness can come, and it's a great thing when it does, but being whole first and living for purpose is more important than happiness. If you have something like a valuable treasure, like knowing who you are and what your purpose is, and being whole, you are going to live for yourself and what you can overflow and give to others. Versus if you're just happy, a lot of times you'll be numb to everything else and you just concentrate on your happiness. But one of the things you said is that you're lonely, okay? And you said, I want a man in my life. Okay, I have been married for almost 34 years. I have 2 kids. You say you have 2 kids also. I'm lonely a lot of the time, and yet I'm surrounded by people. How is that possible? Because my introspective thoughts and ideas are so hard for those around me to relate to that a lot of times I just have to have them and carry them as my own burden. And anything that I might do with them, I know some of it rubs off into my life and those that are around me, but I have so much more to do that people don't realize that's what I need to be doing. And I've not found a way to make a living, and I'm not trying to either, because quite frankly, there are so many people that need help that I want to help. I want to be a person they can talk with. And I would feel poorly if I charged for my services if I could have given them away for free. Here's what I want to caution you about. A few things. Number 1, if you set out to make your happiness dependent on things other than your survival, your mental help of yourself, which results in your mental health, you run the risk of becoming codependent. So what that means Not all people that are married are codependent. I'm not codependent, and I've been married 34 years. What that means is you wouldn't be your full self and you wouldn't be solid without the other person. This is a bad first step to start out on in a journey, no matter how long. Because what you're doing, if you're not careful, is you're taking away self-mastery of yourself and offering it to the next person or thing. It doesn't have to be a person. It could be cigarettes. It could be diet. It could be anything that comes before you. And if you don't maintain your substance, your mental health, your conscious counseling skills aren't sharp, people will walk all over you. Now, you said you're a Christian, so I'm going to offer you a couple of verses here. How do you know that the person you find won't help you if you're willing to help them? How do you know that the person that you find won't make your life better? You don't. It's the law of probability. Jesus said, the road is broad and points the way to destruction. But the road to salvation, or entering through the narrow gate, is narrow, and very few will find it. Whereas almost all are on the broad road, only a few are on the narrow. So if you go and say, I need somebody, I'm not enough on my own, you'll run after anything, vices, people, things that aren't necessarily good for you. And when you're in that relationship, you won't be the strong pillar that you need to be. And as you've happened to have had happen in your life, they've gone off, children with you left you lonely and ill. Because I don't know whether you're qualified to be what you needed to be. But you did know, and you're telling me now, you still want somebody. You're ready to start this whole cycle all over again if you can't stand up and be strong right now on your own. So let's talk about this. The probability is that who you find, if left untended and you don't work together to become more, will most likely be on that broad road, paved, heading towards destruction. That's the probability of what Jesus tells us. Now, that's just a faith-based thing. No one knows that. I happen to live according to that, but that's only because it's more sound than anything I've ever heard. Even if my faith was misplaced, it's still more sound than anything I've ever heard or gained from any other person. Okay? So I just wanted to share that first. Now, let's talk about another thing that's probably going to be a problem here. First off, a Christian family doesn't really mean what everybody thinks it means. A lot of times it means the values from the Bible, or the values from Paul, or the values from what your pastor says, or the values from who knows what concoction might be put together. But a true Christian family that's truly what Jesus is talking about has to have him first, because he's the headstone, he's the capstone, he's the stone the builders rejected. He's the one that showed society what they were doing and how they got it wrong, so that we don't. Very important to realize that some of the messages you got from your Christian family, and maybe even the verses they left you with that are tugging at your heartstrings, may be misleading. So I'm not saying throw that out, but I'm saying if you still have any tendency to want to find out more about that, look towards Jesus first and what he says and who he's talking to, the Jews, but also us, because we gravitate onto that and gain from that. Let me give you another word of caution, not being codependent, but you said you're trying to start a business, but that's been difficult. That's why I asked you to tell me a little bit more. If you've got clothes on your back, a solid house to stay in, and food, and you know your body's going to be okay, first you have to get yourself as healthy as you can be. You're ill right now, so your body has some crippling effect to it right now. Hopefully that will pass. Hopefully you will have health insurance. We live in a country where there's a good chance you do. Modern medicine has a chance of making you better if it's not totally chronic and debilitating. I don't know. But that has to be first. While you're rehabilitating yourself, think on these things I'm talking about. Do the introspective work. Like Bruce Lee, I don't know if you know Bruce Lee, the martial arts guy. When he was in traction and he couldn't do anything else in the hospital, that's when he did most of his writing that was so crucial, and developed his philosophy and started sharing it with others. You might not want to share your philosophy with others. You could if you want to, if you like to write, and if you're a good writer. But there's so much philosophy floating around the world, it's probably not even necessary because it's so hard to figure out what's most important. That's how, another reason why people get on the broad road, even if they're being introspective, they get on the broad road because they latch onto something that sounds good, just like codependency, like I was saying, vices, ideas, and philosophy. We can become codependent and we can follow them to the ends of the earth and they could mislead us. That's the probability that man's words and goals and teachings, whatever, will give to you if you're not careful, if you're codependent and you get sucked in. So that's one thing to think about. Think about your philosophies. Do your introspection while you're in maybe a bed or you're ill and you're on your own. This is a great time to reflect on what you can draw upon. An intelligent person can draw upon all things, but not necessarily get sucked in by them or feel as though they have to incorporate them in their life and follow them. Look at all the ideas, bad ones too. Discard them because you know they're bad. Keep what you know is good. But don't be solid. Think about it over and over again every day. The ideas you've grown up with, the ideas you thought of just recently in your introspection. They might seem new and uplifting, but what was their motivation in their creation? What might they lead to? So consider even the new things you bring on, as well as the old things you've been carrying all the days of your life. Consider them over and over again every day while you're considering everything new. And then finally, because I always try to keep them down to 15 minutes. The last thing in the world you need to be thinking about right now, unless you find a decent man that's just going to be there by your side, a giving man that isn't going to only want to take from you somehow, is to be starting a business. Why? Well, first off, you're ill. Secondly, you're on your own. I don't know what kind of resources you have, but a business is one of the hardest things to do. It takes so much energy. You have to have great ideas. You have to work hard. You have to have probably help. You have to have everything else going well in your life and juggle all those balls in order to do well at a business. So I'm not saying don't do a business. Oh man, I've been on my own for 30 years. Obviously a business is great, but there's so many factors that you need to get a hold of and put in shape for yourself. And then apply the self that you create to all the factors and keep it going no matter what life's adversities might throw at you. Life is a precarious place. We're vulnerable, we're fragile. But if we're harmonious with the understanding and consciousness of it all, that's why I call this Conscious Counseling 101, we can have a better chance, only a chance, no guarantees, of blending in with it and making it work with us in this physical realm. But we need to consider the physical, the spiritual, the mental, the playing each day of all the factors in the earth and in the society towards us and how we deal with them. Furthermore, you didn't elaborate very much on what your mental illness is. That's a huge handicap. Could be a huge handicap. Maybe it isn't. There's a lot of people with mental illness that it's not a huge handicap. They get past it and they move on. I hope you do. But because I don't have anything more to talk about based on what you've told me, I'll just say, with your illness, with your mental illness, with your loneliness, with all the things you currently have going against you, start to build yourself. Start to introspectively make yourself strong. I would go so far as to say, I don't know what your illness is. I would go so far as to say if you were successful at building yourself and made yourself strong, that some of these other things that are troubling you, maybe even your health, good mental image drives who you are and what you are a lot of times. Maybe even your health can be made better. And the road you're on can be made better. And everything you touch can be made better. But rely upon yourself. I'm Paul Roberts, Conscious Counseling 101, and I'm glad to at least be here for you.